Trump is president.
Yes, he is.
Love it or hate it. Most are on either side. I don't know. But he has. This is like one of the very first presidencies that I've seen take drastic measures this early on.
Yeah, he's probably for his first. We're entering his third week now. It's probably the most, definitely, the most drastic.
What was it? He like signed like 200 executive orders on like his first night or something.
Crazy amount of like.
And like he had like a live crowd. It was so weird.
Yeah, that was all such performative shit. Like signing executive orders in a stadium.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Sold out, packed out show, full of magas. I don't know. It's interesting, but on the White House side of things, they're recruiting TikTokers now.
Yes, they are.
What's that about?
I don't know. It's you've chose the right guy for this topic.
Yeah, tell me.
Because well,
Journalism has taken a new low.
I'm literally the journalist in this team.
Yes.
That's a toughie because, well, for one, it's like, I mean, obviously most people are getting their news these days from social media, from TikTok, from Reels, from they're not going to traditional news sites.
Yes.
You know, that's been, because I'm in traditional media, or have been, and that's been their main issue is they can't get people to actually click on stories.
Yes. And I think also just on that super quickly is that the White House has been known that every 4 years or so, actually correct me if I'm wrong, but every 4 years or so with the presidency change, they get new people that apply to become correspondents for certain news networks at the White House, or is that not?
Yeah, usually, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
the presidents and their teams usually get to pick who the press corps is, who gets to come in. Because I know in Trump's last administration, he had some people from like Newsmax and Breitbart,
Yes.
and then when Biden came in, of course they were
Yeah.
not as well pundits.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole idea is that like for the longest time ever, it's always been legacy media companies or like just more like I guess corporate, more like just when you think of journalism, you think TV network or like a blog site or blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This year it's different. This year we really got fucking Bryce Hall doing the Renegade, but there's genuine like they're actively recruiting influencers, TikTokers, Instagrammers, YouTubers, you name it.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, like these people, they have audiences, they have reach. If there's something, if there's a message, the U.S. government wants to send something they want to communicate, then these are channels, good channels to like get that message passed on.
Yep.
The risk is, like there's more to journalism than just like writing and just saying, oh, this is happening. It's like you have to have a sense of objectivity. You have to be able to discern what's actually happening. You got to be able to ask the right questions and dig deeper. It's very easy to just observe something and be like, oh, this is happening, and then ask no follow-up questions. Or, in the case of this administration, they, I mean, fuck, I've followed anything Trump related for like almost 10 years now, and he loves people who do nothing but just feed his ego or say only positive stuff about him. So
kiss the ring.
Yeah, so it's like, I have a hard time like believing his team will say something and those people will they'll they'll misinform people. There's a difference. Like to misinform is to like take in what's
Actually
Trump's
happening.
people are saying, and then they'll just
Alter it a
pass
little
it. Well, to misinform is actually
sorry.
So there's a difference. So misinformation is when if I was in this White House press corps, Trump told me something and I went and I passed on that same message, but didn't dig further. I didn't realize I was lying. I was telling a falsehood. Disinformation would be he passes it on and I knowingly try to deceive people and lead people on, and that's it's a real problem.
Yeah, and I think this like the way that this thing has come about, I think it's kind of natural or it's kind of predictable because, I mean, I don't know if you could tell, but like in this election, it was like you really saw the power of influencers, and you really saw like it was super rare to see an influencer not be on either side of the political spectrum. Like,
Mm.
especially this most recent election, I just felt like every even it doesn't even have to be an American. Like every influencer that had like a tiny bit of influence that spoke in politics were like either extremely like far left or far right, and they were just like writing for the political candidate, and they were saying that like it's the last election ever kind of thing, and it was just like all that like scary talk. But yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show like the power and numbers that these like seemingly weak or seemingly like I don't know what the word is, but I mean, when you think of an influencer, you don't think they're like as legitimate as like a BBC or like a Fox News or blah blah blah.
No, but
But numbers wise, they are probably closer than you think,
yeah,
which is
they're
scary.
yeah. Well, I think, and it's weird because like the lines get, I think, kind of blurred because like I think of like Joe Rogan comes to mind
Yep.
because you know, the whole concept of his podcast is he talks to random people regardless of politics, regardless of viewpoints, whether they're, you know, super accurate with their beliefs or they're full of shit, and he just talks to them. It's just a human conversation, which, you know, on the surface that's pretty great, but then the problem is, and why he faced a ton of controversy. I don't know if you remember a few years ago.
COVID stuff.
There was COVID stuff. It was what's his face, Jordan Peterson
Yeah.
on his podcast. It's because so many people see him as a source of news, see him as a legitimate source of information, whether he wants to be seen that way or not.
Yes.
And so, thing is, he wasn't meeting that expectation that people had set on him.
Yep.
And so that's where that controversy came from. But also, it won't just be him. It'll be a lot of people who turn to influencers, who turn to they look at people they just respect and they assume anything they say could be well they may assume it's
Yeah.
gospel, that it's what they say, it's got to be true. They
Yeah.
you know
Interesting. So
yeah
you're in a unique position because one, you work in a I guess more modern like marketing agency, but you're also a journalist,
yeah
and so as a journalist, how do I say this? As a journalist, are you for or against the inclusion of influencers in the White House?
I'm kind of I gotta can I give a mixed response
There you
because
go.
it's like
Fence sitter. No.
no, legit though, like
Yeah.
I think because I mean legacy media is dying, you know. I talk to people at TVNZ, they're or Television New Zealand, they're literally like they're like yeah we know we're dying, we
Our
got
news
to
on
find a
numbers.
way out.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's the right move to get influencers, younger voices, people on more modern platforms involved.
Yep.
I think I don't know how you go about it, but I think there needs to be there just needs to be a way to discern, you know, who who's the best to report on this information and dig deeper
Yeah.
and pass it on. You know, who's because the journalist's job is to be objective, is to hear, you know, these to ask questions, get answers, but then to also think what do people want to know? You know,
Yeah.
what are the follow-up questions they want to ask, and to be able to dig deeper and I think also just, you know, you got to have it, you know, as a journalist, you know, if you're an influencer and you want to be more of take a more journalistic approach, you got to just have a hunger for the truth, for the facts, and don't let your own personal values, your own ego get in the
Get in the
way.
way, yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
regardless of who you support, regardless of your politics, you just
Yeah.
got to say what is.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like yeah, one of the biggest fears I think for like any normal person that is thinking about this with this new decision is that for one, it's gonna be hard the removal of bias from these influencers because they've built their following based on their biases. I think, and I think it's gonna be like one or the other. I think you either try and keep your audience and just like pander to them, or you have to like fold to the system and just like report the news as it is rather than like and upset your audience like that's the cost of it.
Yeah.
But just on that actually, like I don't know if this is a dumb question, but I mean if we have a fear of the influencers being biased, doesn't are they any different from like legacy media? Like is there any legacy media that isn't biased?
oh, I think so. This is actually my hot take. So
Yeah.
a lot of what every newsroom, every media room you go into, or yeah, just any media organization, news organization you join, they'll tell you about how they try to be yeah, non-biased and not have an agenda.
Yeah.
Part gets thrown around. We don't have an agenda. My take is, like there'll definitely be some legacy media that do have a nefarious agenda or some, they'll have an ulterior motive.
Yep.
But I think, like, even, you look at Television New Zealand, I don't think they're too bad. I
Mhm.
think they're pretty, I think they're actually, pretty fair. But
Yeah.
I think the fact is, all across the world, in every country, a bunch of journalists get together 9 a.m. every morning. They
Yep.
get on a Zoom call or a Teams call, and they say, "All right, here's all this stuff we found. What do we collectively think are the best news stories of the day?" And
Mm.
so, regardless of, even if there isn't, anything nefarious,
Yeah.
anything like they're not trying to cause harm,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's still an agenda nonetheless.
Yeah.
They decide these are the most important
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
so I think that's,
Mm.
yeah, that's,
Interesting.
yeah. So I think, and a problem with legacy media is that I don't think they want to acknowledge that fact that,
Mm.
you know, that they do have an agenda of sorts. It might
Yeah.
not be negative or positive, but it's still nonetheless an agenda.
Yeah.
And I think the fact they haven't acknowledged that, uh, I think that can hurt
Yeah.
reputations because, like, because I think, like, actually, to your point about biases, like,
Yeah.
I think it's like it helps. Well, a lot of, if your journalist leans more to the left or more to the right, it helps if they're at least honest about it.
Yeah.
They say, "Yep, this is my kind of reporting. This is what I focus on." Then
Yeah.
so be it. Then it,
Yeah.
leaves out any doubt.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I think like I don't know if this is like a naive way to think about it, but I think that whenever you, I mean, it's always a little apparent when you can tell what bias or what way
Mm.
the news network is leaning.
Mm-hmm.
But I genuinely think it's not incompetence. I think it's like
Mm.
that just happens to be the way they think, and I don't think that they're like inherently like evil or like wanna screw
Mm.
over the other person. It's just like that's their way of thinking on both sides,
Mm.
both like the right or
Yeah.
left
Oh, yeah.
side. Like
A lot of it, I think, it can be incompetence, and
yeah,
I can't speak for American news organizations because those are the big giant ones,
yep,
or British ones.
yep,
Those are, I can't speak for them. I haven't worked for them, but
yeah,
I know with TV and Z, like, it's rare that there's been times where they're like, we want to phrase something this way to spin it this way. It's
yeah,
usually, what's happened is when I think we've gotten in trouble, especially with, like, writing articles
yeah,
online. It'll be a certain choice of words or a certain word used in the headline,
yeah,
and that gets people riled up,
yeah,
or something gets misunderstood, lost in translation,
yeah,
and yeah, the people, and I'm speaking solely from my own
yeah,
experience, but the people I know, they're not, like, intent on trying to deceive people or throw people
yeah,
off,
yeah,
but there are just times where usually by accident,
yeah,
something just gets misconstrued or
yeah,
just misunderstood,
yeah,
and and the thing is, like, we're humans, we make mistakes, but at the same time, we're supposed to be this source of truth, and when that doesn't happen, uh, if we're the source of truth 90% of the time,
yeah,
99% of the time, and
yeah,
then 1% of the time there's a little oopsie,
yeah,
then that gets, of course, that shatters
yeah.
some of that.
That shatters a
It
big percentage.
takes a
Yeah,
big chip out of that illusion.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. I am for this this direction that the White House is taking.
Hmm.
But again, this is coming from somebody that like has never been into journalism or like
Hmm.
has doesn't have any experience in journalism. So like I don't know if they've necessarily like earned their stripes,
Hmm.
but I think like as the times go on, I guess you earn your stripes in a different way. Like if
Yeah.
yeah, I just think that
Mm.
I mean it's about time. I think like you
Yeah.
because you don't want to be left behind, and you don't. If I'm the United States, I would want to have the people that yeah. I mean it's all about like information, like the spread of information, and I think
Hmm.
one of the quickest ways to do that is like the notable figures on X, the notable figures
Hmm.
on TikTok, and it's just like it's so on the go and it's so like in your phone in the palm of your hand at all times that you can
Hmm.
just like not miss it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
No,
I am for it. I think I
yeah.
am.
No, definitely. I think, yeah, I think there has to be like a bit of a like a dual relationship or
Yeah.
something here. Like I think just overall, yes, I think it's a good idea too. But also I think there has to be I don't know if I trust this White House, but there has to
Yeah.
be I don't know some kind of vetting that to know that the people the influencers they're bringing on are
Yeah.
actually going to be, journalists.
Yeah, and I don't think they should have too many. And I think that like to give the to give the role or position a bit of prestige, I think they should have some influencers, especially if it's the first time ever they're rolling out influencers. I think it should be like maybe 10% of the room. You don't
Mm,
want a whole room of TikTokers for the first time ever.
no.
I just think that is a train wreck bound to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. It's yeah. I don't know. One thing about this, like the current state of the United States, is that you can't not look away. Like it's
Mm.
just something big is happening every day, and it's just like
Yep,
yeah,
that's
good or bad.
how do you think I feel, man?
Yeah,
Gotta watch this every day.
yeah. Yeah. It's like a weird reality show. Honestly,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
it's so
Feels that way.
dystopian. It's crazy.